Welcome and thanks for joining us for this episode. We're going to be talking today about integrating tools and technology into security operations. Did I get that right?
I think you did.
There's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words.
I was a little nervous I was going to get
and
them in
they're
the wrong
not
order.
small words either.
No, and they're important.
Yes.
It's important for me to get them in the right order.
Yes.
So it's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to talk about how we can integrate different tech and tools into our security operations.
Yeah, it's a big complex way of saying something fairly simple like, hey, there's a lot of cool stuff out there that you can use. You might as well go ahead and just use that stuff to do better security operations. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Right? That should have been the title, honestly.
Would have been longer, but easier to understand.
Way
right?
easier to understand. That's right.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is what's called an application programming interface, or an API.
An API. Do you like APIs? Have you dealt with them at all, like in your experience yet?
Not on like I'm sure at some point probably something I've used has
You have.
API
Yeah,
involved, but
yes.
not knowingly. I
But
guess.
not knowingly, you're right. So when we say API, yeah, a lot of people end up using APIs because they go to a website and that makes an API call. And that's more of a abstracted way to interface with an API. But there's also more direct ways in which we can integrate with APIs and make specific like API calls that we have constructed ourselves or with the help of the documentation, which is usually where you go. So if we have a tool that I can use, let's say, for instance, that I'm doing a lot of malware analysis. Let's set the stage here. And I need to submit samples of files that I'm working with to VirusTotal, right? We like VirusTotal. It does a lot of good stuff for us, like checking whether or not there is any known hash that is associated with something malicious. And you can do that by going to their website, browsing to the file you wish, drag and dropping it onto the page and letting it go, and then letting it do its business, and you sit there and wait, and then it tells you whether or not there's a known malicious association and what those are and what vendors let you know about that. Great. Whew, that's a lot. And that was just one. Now we got to do another one. That can get a little tedious. That can get a bit monotonous. What would be great is if I could script that, right? Automation comes into play. So if I write a script that can integrate with VirusTotal, if it can talk to VirusTotal, that would be awesome. Guess what? VirusTotal has an API. That's right. VirusTotal has an API. It's amazing. You're going to love it, right? So let's jump in. I found the documentation for VirusTotal's API. It does look a little tiny now that I'm looking at it. But it's talking a little bit of a warning here, commonly missed stuff, looking for API quota and additional threats. There are, if you get the free tier for VirusTotal, the non-paid kind of thing going on, you only get so much. But if you're paying for this, then they turn the wick up on it, and you can do a whole lot more, a whole lot faster. It talks about the API version and things that are working with it. And here, of course, here's what is the most important thing. These are the most popular API endpoints. How do I make an API call so that I can make these scripts work? So let's say I wanted to do something like upload a file for scanning, right? And analysis your file. I think they meant analyze. Analyze your file with 70 plus antivirus products, 10 plus dynamic analysis, sandboxes, and a myriad of other security tools, blah, blah, blah. Click on this link, and this gives me the documentation for how to do a file upload automatically. Right? So it's asking me for what I need. Here's the endpoint. I noticed it uses a post request. There's the endpoint specifically. It does tell me that if the file to be uploaded is larger than 32 megs, please use this endpoint. Files upload a URL instead of this one here, which is just files. Okay, good to know. Other than that, I can scroll here. I see, okay, well, here's the file. I give it an upload area. I can build it that way. I can tell it the password string if I want to give a password to this. So let's just say, password is our password. Password 1 will make it really secure, right? Moving over here, I'll say, okay, do I have an API key? Which you'll notice is required. You do need an API key, but if you've signed up for VirusTotal, you have a login. Even at the free tier, you get an API key. So that is a secret that you don't want to give out. So, but you would put that in here like this, your API key. So we'll just say ours is 112233445566. That looks good. I like that API key. Sure, it works great. And then Anything else? It just tells us the responses that we can expect. We're either going to get a 200 that tells us, cool, that worked, or a 400, hey, the password provided and the file isn't a zip or contains more than one file. So there's a couple of things that it could be going wrong if you receive a 400 code in return. You're like, this is awesome, Daniel. It still looks like you're putting stuff into a website. All that to say, now I have a request. Now, this is an easy one. This is just a curl request. I can use curl to interface with the API, which I can script. So now I can take this whole entire, you'll notice there's my password, there's my API key, there's the content type, it's in JSON format, here's the endpoint that it's going to. You'll notice it is a post request. Everything's great, but guess what? It's not just curl. If we scroll a bit, where's the scrolly scroll? Just the wrong scrolly scroll. I guess I have to do this. Find me. Where are you? There it is. Just wasn't scrolling enough. You'll notice I can do this in different languages. Node.js, Ruby, PHP, Python. So I do a little bit of Python programming. Cool. This is what I would need to do to make that happen Python style, right? I don't know what just happened there. It went a little nuts. That's Macintosh for you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it gets a little crazy with the hand gestures. I think I had 2 fingers and a hand gestured back. But there you go, right? I can grab this. I can use that. There's my Python version of this. So if I was making a Python script to work with VirusTotal, but that's what we're talking about. That's just one example of us being able to utilize an API for some security operations reason. And that's why we should be integrating anywhere we can with APIs, because we can script and therefore automates.
Okay. Application programming interfaces, APIs.
I know you were dying to know that.
I was. Truly, because I hear about like Twitter's API has been in conversation a lot recently. Just, I'm dating this episode, but it's been in conversation recently online and stuff, and so I hear a lot about it. But I don't interact a lot directly with that kind of stuff, so it's good to know.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we can integrate into our security operations. What about webhooks?
So webhooks are similar to APIs. A lot of people will actually kind of confuse the two. The way an API works is I make a call, and then I receive the answer back, right? We saw that with VirusTotal. I'm either going to get a 200 or I'm going to get a 400, and that 400 means certain things. Okay. But that means that every time that I want to know something, like once I submit that, how do I know when VirusTotal is done? Well, I have to submit to the API again for a different query, which is the query of, hey, what's the status of that upload that I gave you? Here's the specific details. Let me know the status. Okay, it's not done yet. Cool. Then I come back maybe a few minutes later. Hey, what's the status? Oh, you're not done yet. Okay, cool. Then I come back a few minutes later. Hey, what's the it's just getting a little monotonous. Webhooks kind of helps us with that. So if there are webhooks available, now instead of having to query every time I need to know something, it just says, cool, I'll let you know when that's done. That's basically the big difference. So once things are done, it informs you back. You don't have to continually ask it when it's done. It'll let you know when it's completed. So that's really the big major difference. Obviously, there's some programming differences in the way that works, but ultimately the conceptual difference is one is that you must query and wait for a response, whereas versus webhooks that just says, hey, when I'm done, I'll let you know.
Okay. So don't get it twisted. Remember the difference.
Yeah.
So this next one is one that I do actually have and use. So plugins. I've got browser plugins that I use every day.
Are great, aren't they?
They're so convenient.
I do love a good plugin, and they do make our lives very interesting and easy. And depending on the tool that you are using, there very well may be some great plugins. I think of WordPress sites. They love their plugins, and it's the double-edged sword of the WordPress world, honestly, because a lot of WordPress plugins allow for vulnerabilities, and there's a lot of WordPress plugins that you can use to secure your WordPress site. So, there's that. But in the security world, maybe you're using a SIEM, maybe using EDR. What plugins do they have available to them? Any kind of system that you're using, there's a good possibility that there are plugins or add-ons to those systems. You just got to go out there and look. And I love how you brought up the browser, because even your browser can be used for security purposes. I've got a ton of plugins in my browser, not this one. The one we're seeing today, my personal browser has got plugins across the board. I did go out and grab one for this specific episode. in the VT4 browser. Hey, we're on the VirusTotal train. Might as well keep that ball rolling, right? So VirusTotal has a plugin that you can add in. I'm using Firefox today, so that's what I needed to go with. And check it. You can scan your downloads with VirusTotal before storing them free and easy, so on and so forth. Contribute to the own domain, blah, blah, blah. Right? So basically what does this do? It adds VirusTotal functionality into your browser. Let's see how that works. We'll just kind of go back to VirusTotal. And if you have something like a link, I can right-click on that. And then, where's it at? Did I not install it? I thought I did. Under this browser. Well, let's do that. If I haven't done it, I will do it now. Add to Firefox. Yes, add. Allow this to run everywhere. Go for it. Yes, I love it. Amazing. Now, let's try that again, Daniel. Right-click, and now I should get a new addition. Look at that. I can scan the selected link. I can scan the current page. I can insert text or hash into a search. Always highlight the current domain. Always enrich current domain. One-off highlighting of IOCs in current page. One-off enrichment. VT intelligence multi-search for IOCs in current page. VT graph for IOCs in current page. Lots of functionality now has been opened up to me just within my browser. So imagine how much more you could do with other tools. It's just one example, again, of how plugins really expand your capabilities, and it's modular. I can add and subtract things as I need them, so they're super helpful.
Yeah, and this is the one, like I said on the list, that I actually do use in everyday life.
We like plugins.
We do. We love make things so much easier. So it's neat to know that this also has an application in security operations. And this last one on the list, it says single pane of glass. What does that mean in this context?
So a single pane of glass, and you'll hear this get used, and it can be generalized in a lot of ways, but the textbook definition would be to aggregate a bunch of functionality into a single dashboard. The pane of glass being your screen, right? Either your laptop or your monitor at your desktop, whatever the case is. And when you open a system, the very first thing you drop to is kind of an overview of everything. And I can access just about everything, if not everything, from that one specific landing page. That is our single pane of glass. Everything is there. I don't have to go into a bunch of areas or follow rabbit trails down a bunch of links to get to where I'm trying to go. Every pertinent piece of detail will be right where I land as soon as I engage with the system. I've got the WASA, which is a SIEM / EDR / all sorts of fun stuff. So it has a lot of capabilities. And when I log in, the first thing I'm dropped to is their single pane of glass, which I have right here. Here's my WASA server. I don't have a lot going on. It's kind of a default vanilla install, but we get the idea, and that's what's important for demonstrative purposes. So you can see that right out of the gate, I can see things like all the agents that I have, and you'll notice that that is clickable, how many active agents I have, how many disconnected agents I have, pending agents, how many have never connected but are installed, and of course, all this stuff is click-through. I have this capability. And then I can see security information management. So here's the part of my SIEM. I can see security events. I can see integrity monitoring. And then, of course, I also have auditing and policy monitoring as well, all from my single pane of glass. It's all right here. I don't have to go, okay, well, let's see here. I got to go to the menu, and I've got to look through here, and oh, there's the right thing. I've got to learning and find where I got to go. Nope, this is the thing. Now, these dashboards are usually very configurable. They give you the ability to drag and drop, move them wherever you like, add or remove whatever you like, so that you're getting the most pertinent pieces of information as soon as you log in. So configure as you will. But this is what is meant by single pane of glass. Not that there aren't other functions that aren't on the single pane of glass, but the big ones, the ones that you are caring about, the ones that are important to you, those are the ones that are going to show up right there as you log in. That's what we mean by single pane of glass.
All this stuff seems like it, I mean, each of them obviously serves a slightly different purpose, but it all seems like it kind of serves to streamline your operations. It makes things easier for you, basically. So we talked about APIs, webhooks, plugins, and that concept of the single pane of glass. And I feel so much more prepared to integrate tools and technology into my security operations now. Thank you. Thank you for sending me into the world with this knowledge. And thank you for joining us for this episode. We'll see you next time.